Have you ever felt that deeply frustrating disconnect where you know every single grammar rule?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. Like your vocabulary is massive. You can read complex texts perfectly. But then the moment native English speakers open their mouths, it just sounds like a lightning fast, totally different language.
Yeah, it's just a blur. You catch maybe one word in five.
Exactly. Well, what if the secret to fluency isn't actually about speaking faster or, studying more flashcards?
Right.
What if it's about mastering the hidden physical mechanics and the musical rhythms of the language?
It really completely flips the script on how we approach language learning. I mean, we spend so much time treating language like a math problem to be solved on paper.
Oh, totally. Analyzing syntax and verb conjugation.
Exactly. And we forget that it is fundamentally an acoustic and physical phenomenon.
Well, let's get right into it then. Welcome to the Daily English Class channel, everyone.
We are so glad you're here with us.
Our mission today is to extract the absolute science behind native pronunciation. We are throwing out the traditional textbook approach today.
We're stepping straight into the physical reality of sounds.
Yes. From the millimeter adjustments of your tongue to the invisible sounds native speakers secretly insert between words. So, we are approaching language learning today not as an academic subject, but essentially as a physical workout for your mouth.
Which is really what it takes to actually sound natural. Think about when you acquired your first language as a toddler.
Right.
Your facial muscles, your jaw, your tongue, even your vocal cords, they all underwent this literal specialization process.
We got highly tuned to produce that specific set of sounds.
Effortlessly, yes. But English requires a completely different set of muscular movements.
So it's basically like trying to run a marathon when you've only ever trained for swimming.
That is the perfect way to look at it.
You might be in great cardiovascular shape, meaning, all the vocabulary, but the specific muscles required for running simply haven't been built up yet.
Yeah, and if you try to speak English using the deeply ingrained muscle memory of your native language, you will always have a strong accent.
And worse than that, you might be completely misunderstood.
Exactly. To fix this, you have to engage in deliberate physical exercises. You have to exaggerate your jaw drops, slide your lips side to side, or slowly trace your teeth with the tip of your tongue.
Just to build up that localized strength and spatial awareness.
Right. You literally have to build new neural pathways to your mouth.
And when you realize how intensely physical these mouth postures are, you start to see why missing a movement by just a millimeter is so dangerous.
Oh, it really is a game of millimeters.
Which brings us to the concept of minimal pairs. These are pairs of words that differ by only a single tiny sound.
But that tiny shift completely changes the dictionary definition of the word.
Right. Imagine you're in a high-stakes business meeting. Messing these up can legitimately ruin your professional credibility.
It really can. Let's look at a classic example. The words pat and bat.
Oh yeah, the P and B sounds.
Physically, your lips are doing the exact same thing for both. They press together, they build up pressure, and they release a burst of air.
But the entire difference happens deep in your throat, right, with your vocal cords.
Exactly. It's the concept of voicing.
I always tell learners to do the paper test for this. If you hold a piece of paper, like an inch from your mouth and say, pat, that voiceless P sound requires a strong puff of aspirated air.
Because the vocal cords are turned off?
Yes. So the lungs are just pushing raw air and the paper physically jumps back. But if you say bat, the paper barely flutters.
Because for the B sound in bat, your vocal cords are vibrating. The acoustic energy is going into creating that vibration in your larynx, not pushing air out of your mouth.
It's such a microscopic adjustment.
But the listener's brain uses that puff of air or lack of it to decide whether you just said pat or bat.
And it's not just the consonants that require this intense physical precision. The vowels are incredibly demanding, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Take the short I sound in bit versus the long E sound in beat. I know so many learners struggle here.
Well, because in many languages, there is only one I sound, but physically, they are completely different postures in English.
How so?
To say beat, your tongue is high, it's pushed forward, and your facial muscles are incredibly tense. You almost have to exaggerate a wide smile.
The sides of your tongue are actually pressing hard against your upper teeth. Beat.
You can actually feel the fatigue in your cheeks if you hold it.
Wow, yeah, you really can.
But for bit, you have to instantly drop that tension. Your jaw drops just a millimeter or two, the smile relaxes entirely, and the tongue rests lower in the mouth.
So it's a short, lax sound.
Exactly. If you don't master the physical difference between a tense facial posture and a lax one, you'll end up asking for a sheep when you wanted a ship.
Oh man, that reminds me of learning chords on a guitar.
Ah, that's a great comparison.
When you first pick up the instrument, your fingers feel like incredibly awkward and weak. You're stretching them into these weird, unnatural positions.
And your brain is screaming that it feels impossible.
Right. But after a few weeks of daily physical practice, your hand just forms a C chord automatically.
And your tongue is just another muscle doing the exact same thing.
But let me ask you about a specific practice method. I've always heard you should do these pronunciation drills while looking in a mirror. Is that really necessary? It feels a bit silly.
It is absolutely crucial.
Really? Why?
Because your brain is so deeply wired to your native language, your own ears will literally lie to you.
Wait, your ears lie to you.
Yes, you might think you are making the correct English sound because your brain is trying to map your output onto a familiar sound from your mother tongue. Visual and tactile feedback are the only ways to bypass that cognitive bias.
So by looking in a mirror, you can physically verify the mechanics.
Exactly.
You can say, the tip of my tongue is actually touching the ridge behind my teeth for the L sound in light, and I can see it pulled back and bunched up for the R in right.
Or with the notorious T-8 sounds in phi and thy. If you don't use a mirror, you might just be making an S or an F sound without realizing it.
Oh, wow.
You need the mirror to visually confirm your tongue is actually placed between your teeth.
Okay, so once our instruments, our mouths are physically conditioned and tuned with these individual sounds, how do we actually play the music?
Right, because having great individual sounds doesn't equal fluency.
Exactly. That brings us to the rhythm of the language.
This is where we transition from the physical gym to the musicality of English. English is what we classify as a stress-timed language.
Which is very different from syllable-timed languages, right? Like Spanish or French or Japanese.
Completely different. In those languages, every syllable gets roughly the same amount of time and weight. But in a stress-time language, the rhythm is dictated entirely by the stressed syllables.
Think of them as the heavy drum beats in a song. Everything else has to speed up or shrink down to fit around those beats.
And what's really fascinating is that the stress isn't just about sounding poetic. It physically alters the dictionary definition of the word.
Yeah, a great rule of thumb for two-syllable words is that nouns and adjectives generally stress the first syllable, like sample or purple.
Right. But verbs and prepositions stress the second syllable, like re-lax or between.
Let's take that a step further just to see how high the stakes are. Take the word spelled present.
Oh, good one.
If you place the heavy beat on the first syllable, present, it's a noun meaning a gift. But if you shift that beat to the second syllable, present, it becomes a verb meaning to give or display something.
The exact same letters, but the rhythm dictates the meaning.
And it works for longer words, too. Suffixes act like these rhythmic anchors.
They do. If a word ends in or pili, the stress stays near the front, like orderly.
But the moment you add suffixes like akegen or situation, the gravity of the word shifts. The stress moves to the second to last syllable.
So television becomes television. It's all about maintaining that acoustic bounce.
The language evolved these patterns, so the listener's brain can predict where the most important information is going to land.
Exactly.
Which raises a really important question. If we are hitting certain syllables that hard, what happens to all the other vowels in the word?
This brings us to the ultimate secret weapon of the English language.
Schwa.
The mighty schwa. It's represented by an upside-down E in the phonetic alphabet, and it is the single most common sound in the English language.
It's just a completely relaxed, neutral, unstressed sound.
The jaw is barely open, the tongue is dead center, doing absolutely no work.
It's the A in about, the O in lemon, the U in supply.
Exact.
But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. English has all these beautiful, distinct vowels, A, E, I, O, U. Why on earth do we turn so many of them into this one lazy, generic sound?
It seems wrong, right?
Isn't that just sloppy speaking?
Sure.
Shouldn't a learner try to pronounce every letter clearly as it's written on the page?
It's a really common assumption, but attempting to pronounce every letter clearly will actually make you much harder to understand.
Really?
Yeah. The schwa isn't sloppiness. It is absolute efficiency. Think of the schwa as the negative space in a painting.
Oh, I love that analogy.
If every single inch of a canvas is painted with bright neon colors, nothing stands out. The eye has nowhere to rest. It's just visual noise.
And speech works the same way.
Exactly. By making the unstressed syllables incredibly weak, short, and neutral, by turning them into the schwa, the stressed syllables pop out dramatically.
Yeah, that intense contrast between the loud, long stressed syllables and the tiny, weak schwa syllables is exactly what creates that signature bouncy rhythm.
So it's not about being lazy, it's about creating contrast. The schwa is the shadow that makes the light look brighter.
Now, if the schwa helps single words flow efficiently, what happens when we string words together into a full sentence?
This is where listeners get really frustrated. They hit the blur of natural native speech.
When learners complain that native speakers talk too fast, they're usually experiencing an illusion, aren't they?
Completely. Native speakers aren't actually speaking at a faster syllables per second rate than speakers of other languages. They are utilizing connected speech.
To maintain that stress-timed rhythm without breaking the flow, they link, mix, add, and drop sounds. The sentence just becomes an unbroken stream of air.
It's exactly like cursive handwriting.
Yes. When you first learn to write, you print block letters. You lift the pen after every single letter. It's precise, but it's very choppy.
But with cursive, you never lift the pen. The tail end of one letter physically loops into the beginning of the next.
In connected speech, the voice just glides smoothly from one sound directly into the next without stopping the airflow.
That cursive analogy perfectly illustrates the four main mechanisms of connected speech.
Let's walk through them.
The foundational mechanism is linking, or catenation. Whenever a word ends in a consonant sound and the very next word begins with a vowel sound, you pull that consonant over and attach it to the vowel.
So a phrase like, pick it up, doesn't have three separate beats. The brain processes it as one long word, pocky cup.
Right. And not at all becomes not at all.
Okay, linking consonants to vowels makes total sense. You're just carrying the sound over. But what about when I hear someone say, what are you doing? And it sounds like, what you doing?
Yeah, that's not just linking.
The actual sounds seem to be mutating.
You're picking up on the second mechanism, assimilation. This acts like a sound mixer. Sounds physically change their identity to match their neighbors in order to reduce the distance the tongue has to travel.
Because if you try to say what and then you distinctly, your tongue has to press against the ridge to stop the air for the T and then immediately pull back and change shape for the Y.
It takes way too many milliseconds. So the brain anticipates this and fuses them into a chi sound halfway between the two positions.
So what you becomes whatcha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it happens with DNY as well, turning into a J sound. So could you becomes kojo.
It even happens with place assimilation, right?
Oh, yeah. The N sound is normally made right behind your front teeth. But if the next word starts with a K or a G, which are made way in the back of the throat, your tongue takes a microscopic shortcut.
So if you say 10 kids, your tongue doesn't bother going to the front teeth or the end. It just makes an ang sound in the back of the throat.
It sounds like 10 kids. It's purely about physical efficiency.
I noticed something else too. I tried saying go out, and if I try to say the O and the O distinctly, I feel a weird, awkward catch in my throat.
Oh, yes.
How does natural speech bypass that pause when two vowels crash into each other?
That catch in your throat actually has a name. It's a glottal stop.
Yeah.
And native English rhythm absolutely hates it because it halts the unbroken stream of air.
So to prevent it, the mouth utilizes the third mechanism, intrusion.
We naturally insert tiny semiconsonants that aren't spelled out on the page to build a bridge between the vowels.
They are completely invisible sounds.
Yes. If the first word ends in a rounded vowel, like go or do, your lips are already pushed forward in a tight circle. So as you move your mouth to the next vowel posture, a natural W sound intrudes.
Go out naturally becomes go out. Do it becomes do it.
And if the first word ends in a high front vowel, like we or I, your mouth is stretched wide in a smile.
So as it relaxes, a Y sound sneaks in. We always becomes we always. I asked becomes I asked.
And my personal favorite variation of this is the intrusive R in British accents.
Oh, the non-erotic secret.
Yes. In British English, an R at the end of a word is usually silent. But if a vowel comes next, that R suddenly wakes up to act as a bridge.
Or, remarkably, even if there is no R in the spelling at all, the mouth will insert one if a word ending in a neutral vowel meets another vowel.
Like the idea is becomes the idea R is.
Which leaves the final mechanism of connected speech. Elision, the sound eraser.
Sometimes, for maximum cursive flow, sounds are just dropped entirely.
And this completely explains why listening comprehension is so incredibly hard for learners. You are waiting to hear a sound that simply isn't there anymore.
Exactly. With T and D dilution, if a T or D is sandwiched between two other consonants, it just disappears because it's too much work to stop the airflow.
Next time becomes next time.
Yeah.
Old man becomes old man.
And the H deletion, we drop the H on unstressed little words like he, him, her, or have.
So a phrase like tell her becomes tell-er. You aren't listening for her, you're listening for er.
If you are listening for the pristine dictionary words, what are you going to do? But the native speaker utilizes assimilation, elision, and the schwa. What actually comes out of their mouth is what you're going to do.
If you don't know the rules of this acoustic cursive handwriting, you will be utterly lost.
Absolutely.
So how do we take this massive decoding of the English matrix and turn it into a practical daily routine?
We have to move from conscious awareness, knowing the rules, to unconscious automaticity, where our mouths just do it.
Knowledge is only valuable when it's applied physically. You can't just memorize these rules, you have to train them.
One of the most practical tactics is recording yourself.
Yes, read a short passage, record it on your phone, and then listen to a native speaker reading the exact same text.
You have to objectively evaluate yourself. Are you utilizing the schwa, or are you overpronouncing every vowel?
Are you linking your consonants to your vowels? Another brilliant tactic is the rule of three.
This is a great targeted rhythm exercise.
You take a sentence, and you identify the three most important content words, the nouns or verbs that carry the actual meaning.
You practice saying those three words strongly and clearly.
Then you take all the little grammar words in between the prepositions, the articles, and you reduce them all to schwas and rest them together.
You are anchoring the rhythm. By forcing the grammar words to shrink, you physically compel the content words to stand out.
So, I have been to the office becomes IVBNNET.office.
It works perfectly, but the centerpiece of practice really is the shadowing technique.
It has 4 very specific steps. First, mumbling.
You listen to a native speaker audio clip and just mumble along without looking at the text.
But why mumbling?
It goes back to neurology. Your brain's auditory cortex aggressively filters out non-native phones.
I see.
By mumbling, you remove the pressure of getting the letters right, and you bypass the brain's filters to purely feel the speed, the rise and fall of the pitch, and the raw rhythm of the language.
That makes a lot of sense. Then you move to parallel reading, where you look at the text and speak along with the audio.
Step 3 is comprehending the suprasegmentals.
Which just means actively analyzing where they place the stress, where they use a schwa, where they linked words.
And finally, reflecting and practicing. You read it aloud on your own, applying all those acoustic rules.
It's all about intentional, focused repetition. 10 to 15 minutes of highly focused, sweaty practice.
Looking in the mirror, doing the shadowing technique, actually feeling your mouth muscles burn.
That is vastly superior to having an English radio station playing passively in the background for 3 hours.
You are literally rewiring the neural pathways that control your vocal apparatus.
Think about this as we wrap up today. What if you completely stopped viewing English as an academic subject that you study with your brain and started treating it like a martial art or a musical instrument that you train with your body?
It is a profound shift.
The grammar rules and the vocabulary words on the page, that's just the sheet music. But your mouth, your lungs, your vocal cords, your tongue, that is the actual instrument.
It completely removes the frustration because you realize that struggling to sound natural isn't a lack of intelligence.
It's simply a lack of physical conditioning. It's time to stop just reading the sheet music and start physically playing the music of English.
Keep practicing, keep looking in that mirror, and embrace the music of the language.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so glad to have you as part of our community.
Please make sure to interact with us.
Yes, leave a comment below, letting us know which connected speech rule or pronunciation concept completely blew your mind today. Was it the mighty schwa, or maybe the invisible intrusive W?
We love reading your insights.
Don't forget to like this video, share it with a fellow language learner who could really use a breakthrough, and subscribe to the Daily English Class channel so you never miss our next analysis.
You know the words, you know the grammar, now you just need to tune your instrument.
Find that negative space and let the sounds glide together. We'll see you next time.